Today, our guest is Marla Peterson from Honeywell Aerospace. She is a recent retiree, having spent over 40 years at Honeywell Aerospace and left her team that was responsible for resolving producibility issues on the factory floor and creating efficiencies within engineering. She gained her project knowledge on engines and power systems, where she developed engineering tools and processes and became a black belt in Lean Master, leveraging uh, her teaching and mentoring skills with these building blocks. So Marla advanced through numerous leadership positions where she excelled in developing employees and streamlining engineering processes. We're very grateful that she is here with us today to share her wisdom. Uh, so uh, I'm just going to jump into a few questions, and then for those of you who are in the session here as students, if you have questions, please put those up in the chat. We do have my colleagues Barbara Haney and Thea Fuller moderating the chat, and they will bring your questions forward. Internship or job hunting is a big topic. So, what advice do you have for our students so that they can get the job that they want?
Now, that's a huge, huge question, right? Everybody, you start in college and you're all set with engineering, and now, what are you going to do when you graduate? So, there's a number of things that are happening in our world today, but some of the things that I would suggest is start early. If you're a freshman or sophomore, make sure that, you are really getting to understand the technical side of engineering. I know a lot of freshmen change. Maybe they started in mechanical, they changed to chemical, or they changed to civil. So there's a lot of opportunities to really feel your way through your freshman and sophomore year, because most of the fundamental classes that you need to take are similar. But really look at yourself technically and decide what you want to do, but prepare yourself. I really think that getting that perfect job right out of college is really important to start early. So start as soon as possible, start as a freshman or sophomore. Um, Look at your classes technically, do well, start seeing what you like and what you don't like. Um, and then I think one thing that I would really highly recommend as a freshman or a sophomore, maybe now as a junior or senior, is to really look at your social media presence. One thing that I highly recommend is that you make it professional. I know a lot of high schoolers going to college and they still have these crazy, wild Facebook pages or things like that. I'd highly recommend that you look at maybe clean that up and maybe make it a little more professional as you get into college and as you start thinking about a job in the future. I think the key to really looking at jobs is start early, but really it's to build a network. Um, Networking is so important today. I just got a wonderful article from Wall Street Journal, thanks to Barbara Haney, who's on the call, that talked about landing a job is about who you know. And I totally believe that right now. I think you need to start working on your network ASAP. So what I would do is, as a freshman or a sophomore, even now as a junior or senior grad student, is make sure that I'm involved in an industrial organization like ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, or IEEE, or NCOSE, or IISE, or ASCE for civil engineers. There's so many, and ASU has collegiate chapters for each of these. You go to these meetings, and sure, it's to students, but there's students that are deciding, hey, is civil engineering, do I really want to do this? Do I want to do something with water, or do I want to do something with bridges? It's people that are talking about the actual career. The student chapter then knows the professional chapters in Phoenix, and then they will be invited to different talks. So here's a person that's going to be talking at ASME that's maybe a mechanical engineer from, let's say, Honeywell. And they're going to tell you all about what they do. They will tell you about Honeywell. You're going to start, understanding the organization. You can also then get to know them, come up afterwards and say, hey, I'm so and so, I'm at ASU, I'm really in mechanical engineering, I'm really excited about what I heard today, I'd really like to do it. You've made a connection. And hopefully that person is gonna link you in to their LinkedIn, and you've started something, right? So I would highly recommend industrial professional organizations. They really will help you build your network. Another great area to build your network is a collegiate chapter of the Society of Women Engineers, SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professionals, National Society of Black Engineers, SACE, ACE. There's so many, and I would highly recommend that you look at those too, because you'll have the same opportunities to talk to professionals in those diverse areas. Another great thing to do is talk to your TAs, talk to your professors. Professors are tied into industry, and they can help you kind of align. Okay, well, I'm really interested in doing this type of work, and they can help you. So, as a freshman or sophomore, start to build your network with your professors as well. I think one of the keys that really finding that perfect job at the end of your college career is really being able to apply your academics to real work, to reality. So to how do you do that, right? Well, so professors try to show you, okay, let's do a capstone project or let's do a project in this class, and they do the best they can to really have you think about how to take that equation and put it into reality, right? So be sure that you get lots of project work. Again, you're networking with fellow students, you're building your network. If you do an internship, you're building a network with people at that company. So throughout all this, undermining everything you do is building that network so you know people at those companies. And then I would really make sure that you decide what kind of areas you want to look at. I mean, as a junior, maybe moving into your senior year, there's so many ways to look at job hunting. Do I want to work in a major big industry? What industry? Is it aerospace? Is it automotive? Is it pharma? Is it ship manufacturers? Decide the basic industry that you're thinking about. And maybe it's more than one, which is perfectly fine. But then also think about the big picture. Do I want to work for a large corporation? Do I want to work for a small corporation? Do I want to do medium size? Do I want one that's not even IPO'd yet? So, those are types of questions that you can feel through your junior and senior year. And then maybe one of the biggest things you need to ask yourself is, what does this company do to make our world better? Is it a defense company? Do I want to work for a defense company? They make missiles. Do I want to be a part of that, right? So you really need to decide what's the value that they're offering to the world, and does that fit with who you are? Is it maybe environmental? Is it all about sustainability? Is it all about climate control? Is it all about just making things more efficient? So I would definitely consider the industry, the type of company that you're working for, and the value that they provide, and ultimately the products they're providing to the world. And then I guess, what else I would recommend is just being sure that you attend career fairs. The Fulton School Career Center does an amazing job in providing you opportunities to talk to different companies, different individuals such as myself. I would definitely highly recommend that you attend these, even as freshmen, because I want you to be able to walk up to a person cold and just say, hey, I'm so and so. I'm a freshman here at ASU. I'm starting to study mechanical engineering. I know that you hire mechanical engineers. What do you look for, in a student to get an internship? Ask them. They would love to talk to you. So there's great opportunities all the way through. And then as you become a junior and senior, you know what companies to go to and you know what to say because you're comfortable in talking to people at career fairs. And then one thing that people don't do, which, and maybe you guys do now, but it's amazing that there's so much great social media out there. So if you really want to work at Honeywell, link into the Honeywell LinkedIn site, link into Intel, Medtronics, any company that you're interested in, because this social media shows you not only the products they make, but it talks about what they do culturally within the community. It talks about how people are treated. It talks about advancements as leaders become new leaders. So there's so much more in social media than just researching a company. You really can get a feel for especially the culture. And is that a culture that you want to be a part of? So the things that you'll think about as you get into your senior year is really look at those companies, hopefully your freshman, sophomore, junior year, you've decided that, hey, this is the industry I want to work at. These are some of the key companies that would be my dream job, right? So then once you've narrowed it down, you've got to think about, okay, what's important to you? Um, do these companies, are they located in the locations I want to live in? Do they offer benefits that really attract me? Is their company culture something that I really want to be a part of? Do they provide promotions and merit? Do they have training opportunities? Can I get an advanced degree and they pay for it? So those are some of the things that you'll think about as you start looking at accepting or even filtering out those final companies your your senior year when you're starting to graduate. I think that's a lot. I probably went really fast, but those are the things I'm thinking about. But the biggest thing to look for jobs is really start as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Marla. I think you've kind of covered the second question. I really love what you're talking about with, applied knowledge, networking, and making sure that the mission of the organization matches your personal values, because that is really important as coming from a career counselor,
Ah,
that is like the first place I usually start with people. So I really value that. But our second question was, how can students learn more about the roles in your industry and at your company? And I feel like you've really covered that well. Is there anything else that you want to speak about along those lines?
one thing that I think is a really cool thing to do, and I would highly recommend this. So each April or May, the fall, and maybe you guys can help me on this. So I know in the spring we do capstone project reviews, right? We have a big day where everybody gives their capstone presentations and there's judging and all that. Is that just in the spring at ASU? Is it in the fall too? Do you guys know? Well, anyhow,
Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure, but I think things are kind of happening all year round. But
okay.
I think the fall is the big push.
Oh, the big, okay. So what I would highly recommend as a freshman or a sophomore or a junior is attend the afternoon sessions and walk through and look at all the projects that are being done. Each of those projects has a mentor from industry. Here is another way to network with people. Then you also, if there's something that really intrigues you, you can talk to the team, you can network and get to know these people, you can talk to the mentors. I think it's a great way to see what these companies are looking at and what they're giving as projects to ASU, the seniors. And you're going to be doing your senior project anyhow. And so, what a great way to get used to doing something like this or seeing it. I think it's another great way to mentor. That's all I would add to the second question.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go on to our next question. So the last few years have seen lots of changes in the economy, and of course we're in an election year, so it's more uncertain, especially with recent events. So what are some of the areas where these changes have impacted opportunities at Honeywell or just in your industry in general? Like, what should students be ready to embrace coming into this career?
Yeah, so Honeywell is a defense contractor, and that's very political in the sense that Honeywell gets about 40% of all their revenue through the Department of State or Defense. So I think one thing that you really need to look at is, do you want to work in the defense industry? Some companies, let's say UTX, which used to be Raytheon, um, is probably more like 80 or 90, maybe even 100% defense. And so when you're a defense company or contractor, you're going to see ebbs and flows of what the political economy is like, right? So there might be lots of cuts in defense, and so then there's less people that will be hired to do that work. The nice thing about Honeywell is we have a nice blend, 60-40. So 40% is defense, 60 is commercial. And we really try to balance so that if there's a defense contract that that gets cut, Then we move those people to commercial products or hardcore R&D so that we can keep the same population, but then that does restrict hiring. We also really make sure that during those times, we still have a very strong intern program so that we can see the future. Interns do provide us a lot of diversity in the sense of their education and their sense of enthusiasm. And we'd really like to continuously have interns. A lot of interns then can be converted, but it's going to be a smaller population if there's issues such as defense cuts. COVID caused us a lot of grief, especially on the supply chain side. And that restricted how many people we hired in manufacturing engineering, industrial, data analytics. And now I think we're finally getting back there, even though we still have a lot of challenges with partners that are still trying to catch up, our subcontracted companies that help us with different parts. So supply chain issues are really big. It's not easy when there's these type of opportunities in our world. I think some of the things that I've suggested to people is, it doesn't last a long time. Sometimes it's 4 years because of a political party or whatever, but usually it's just a year or two cycle. And then maybe that's a great time to get a master's or extend your education even further. But always try to stay in those intern opportunities, those co-op opportunities if you can't get a full-time job. But chances are you can probably get a full-time job. It might not be your dream job, but don't get discouraged. I think you can always, once those type of economic issues resolve or rescind a bit, then you can hopefully get into your dream job at Honeywell or wherever. Hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I not personally in the tech industry, but a lot of family members are, and I've seen them ride the tide, so to speak, like
Yeah.
you're talking about. So totally get it, but it always rebounds.
Yeah, it does. Thank goodness.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, thank you. Thank you for your insight. So, okay, so kind of a related question. All of us are seeing the articles that just, describe thousands of applicants for a job. So, what can students do to raise the probability of, getting noticed, getting through that initial screening so they can get to the interview?
Yeah. I guess I think the best thing is screening like at a career fair or just an opportunity to in person meet somebody is key. Having a clean resume, um, having the ability to show enthusiasm and excitement, not nervousness. I know everybody can be a little nervous. Sometimes that makes you even better, right? If you have a little bit of nerves. But really just being able to present yourself and have that elevator speech of why you want to work for a company, I think is very important. I think you have to do your homework though before you go to a job fair. Really know the companies that you want to talk to. Really be sure that you have the right buzzwords for that company. Oh, Honeywell, I know you're in aerospace. I know you're in performance materials and technology. I know you're really helping to make buildings more efficient. So you've done your research and you've looked that, hey, Honeywell's not just aerospace. And the person that's talking to you will be impressed because you did your homework. So I think those are really important. I think that resume is really important in the sense that it's all we have of you right now. It's one piece of paper. It needs to be clean and succinct. It kind of needs to tell us everything we would need to know, but we want you to be able to talk to it. So as an example, let's say your summary says that you're results driven and that you're really passionate about being a mechanical engineer, and you look and you see all the things that the student has done, but there's no results in their resume. So how do you know they're results driven if there's no documented results in the descriptions of the work experience and the projects that they've done? So be sure that when you're communicating your resume that it talks the talk, right? That it's telling, okay, sure, I'm a results driven person. I'm a leader. So do you have leadership experience? Do you show that you were present in the Society of Women Engineers? Do you show that you were the treasurer of ASME? So make sure that it all ties together when you do a summary or objective statement. I think if I were you and I were in your shoes, I think I would give you this advice. I would say be persistent. Now, I want you to be persistent logically, though. So let's just say Honeywell comes to ASU and they say that, hey, we're looking for entry level or internships in mechanical and aerospace. But that's it, and so you go to the career fair, but you're a chemical engineer. Um, so you go over and talk to the Honeywell people, and they'll tell you, yeah, we do have chemical engineers, but they're in different divisions of Honeywell. We can take your resume, but we can't, we were not hiring because aerospace doesn't have a spot for chemical engineers. Um, then logically, I would know that I'm not going to pester. I'm not going to be persistent to that person I talked to at ASU because they've told me right up front that aerospace doesn't hire chemical engineers. But that doesn't stop me as a chemical engineer to look at the other areas of Honeywell that do. And then I become persistent in making sure that other people, so then I would push back and say, okay, who can I talk to at Performance Material and Technologies, Honeywell, so that I can get my chemical engineering resume to them so that I could get hired by them. And then get that name and then be persistent and find out, okay, how can I do that? How can I become an intern there? So if there's rules and regulations or there's opportunities for certain disciplines, so again, be logical about being persistent. Don't be so persistent that you're bugging people because then they're going to get tired of it, right? But be persistent to be sure that you've walked down every avenue. Don't just go to career fair. Be sure that your network, if there's somebody in your network that you met at ASME at your freshman year and you still have them in LinkedIn, ask if they know of any opportunities at Honeywell. Send them a resume. Um, use SWE or SHIP or NSBE to find people that work at Honeywell. Make sure that they have your resume. Make sure that they send it to HR. So you've got your resume in through the career fair. You've got your resume in through your networks. I don't know how many people I ask because every time I interview, I ask, why did you choose engineering and why ASU? And they'll tell me. And in most cases, they chose engineering because they had a family friend or their grandfather was an engineer and they really thought that was exciting, right? So you've got a wealth of networks. You just have to use them correctly, right? So again, go to the career fairs, get your resume in, get it turned in, look at your network, see who all works at the companies that you're most interested in, be sure they have a copy of your resume, make sure that they will get that to an HR person or a recruiter, and then kind of be persistent. Don't be annoying, don't be a nag, but find out, hey, did you turn it in? Did they have any questions about me? What time do you think I can, when will I hear back, right? So again, be persistent, but do it logically.
Thank you, Marla. That's all great advice. So I think some of what I'm going to ask next, you've already covered, which is awesome.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's great. So I think one of the things that I'm watching the chat is as you're talking, and there are questions about what makes resumes stand out, and what about the one or two pager? And so, where do you stand on that as a hiring manager?
So if I'm at a career fair and I only have a limited amount of time to talk to as many students as possible, one page is essential. One page that is clean, succinct, that has a great summary or objective statement at the top that tells me, okay, I'm so and so, and I want an internship, or I want a co-op position, or I want a full-time position. That helps me tremendously get through the resume as quickly as possible. So one page. I will definitely look at multiple pages for PhD. We very rarely hire PhDs. I guess I shouldn't really say that. I mean, we do, but we also push PhDs to Sandia. Honeywell manages Sandia and Lawrence Livermore Laboratories and the Federal Manufacturing Technology in Kansas City. So a lot of our advanced degrees we push to them, but we will accept them. And they could be multiple pages. So resumes, I really like one page. I really like it to be just as you've been taught if you go to the Career Center here at Fulton College of Engineering. One page that has great headers so I can know exactly what your skill sets are, where your work experience is, what your projects have been, where your grade point average, what it is, and I know exactly where to look on the resume to find it. It really helps tremendously to get through as many people as I can at a career fair. Grade point average is important. We have to ask it. Um, if you don't feel comfortable with your grade point average, talk to me about it. Tell me why it's where it is today. I'm more than happy to listen to that. But you've got to put it on your resume. And I think the real key on a resume is results. Like I said earlier, if you say you're a results-driven person, then prove it. I want to see on your resume with work experience and with projects that you're actually completing something and that there was something there that's tangible that you can actually quantify, right? And sometimes it's hard. I get it, but try to think of ways that you can prove that, hey, I really did get a result and it was valuable. It doesn't have to be monetary, but it could be something that, really shows that you've made a change and made a difference. I think that's how a resume stands out for me.
Thank you for that. I actually just had a conversation earlier today, kind of along those lines of how what really matters is what you do.
Yeah, yeah,
And how technology kind of feeds off. So like if you make something and you document it, someone else can run with it, right?
yeah,
And so I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So that's what you're looking for, right?
yep.
Yeah, that next great genius. So, so I mean, okay, that's maybe overstated, but the next one that can contribute. But okay, so they get this great resume, they get the interview, and then what are some of the things that you've seen in interviews that are common mistakes that students should be aware of so that they can avoid?
Um, I think the biggest one for me is that the student or the applicant doesn't answer the question that I'm asking. Um, and as an interviewer, it's my responsibility to make sure that you're um, calm, that I've created a dialogue between the two of us. I always start with some, where are you from? Like I said, why did you choose engineering? Why ASU? To hopefully relax you. And then at least some, right? Because we're all going to be nervous. I understand. And then I ask my first question, and sometimes it's like they didn't hear it. So I would highly recommend that you ask me to repeat it if you didn't quite hear it. Want to be sure that, maybe you even jot down the question or just a key word in the question so you can, look at that and think. Take your time in answering. You don't have to, answer it immediately. I would highly recommend that you listen and then you answer it as calmly and as prepared as possible. That's the biggest one. The second one is that I've had a lot of applicants that they come in, shake your hand. Well, I guess hit your elbow. It depends, where we are. And they just start right away telling me all about themselves. And so they kind of take over the interview. And it takes me a minute to get them to calm down and to say, okay, wait a minute. It's okay. Let's just go through some questions here, and then we'll just get through the interview. So I know you get nervous. Everybody does, but sometimes people just kind of run with it. I would definitely try to make sure, even if you're not leading, you shouldn't be leading the interview, but trying to lead the interview, that your answers are a little more short and succinct, but answer the question. So don't drive the interview, answer the question, and then finally, at the end, it's really important to have some questions. You want to be sure that you're engaged. We want to be sure that you know something about, Honeywell or any company, right? So ask some really great questions. If they don't have questions, you kind of wonder, well, did they do their research? Do they really know what Honeywell does? So I think it's a great idea. I know it's a great idea to have a question at the end. I also would totally, I think one of the keys that I would recommend to all of you is you have an interview with the company. You really want that internship. And at the end, maybe you don't have a solid question, but you've got a couple questions. But at the last, maybe it's not a question that you say to the interviewer. Maybe it's, I'm really impressed with what Honeywell does. I've always dreamed of watching planes. I go to the runway and I watch planes land, and it's just so exciting. And I know that I can add value as an intern. I know it's like a 3-month interview with me and you, and I think it would be advantageous if I became your intern, right? So you're selling yourself at the end. You're giving yourself, and maybe that wasn't the best because I just did it off the top of my head, but think about what you would do as your last statement to an interviewer and tell them, hey, I'm the person that you want to hire, right? Sell yourself, because all that interviewer has right now is a piece of paper and maybe a 30 minutes, 45-minute discussion with you. And so you're going to you're going to summarize it all, and you're going to say, I'm the person for the job. So that's what I do in an interview. Answer the questions though.
Marla, I love it. I like how you're talking about the fit. So the value in the mission and the earlier question, and then now, what am I impressed about adding value to this company, and where my skill set can plug in?
Yes. Yes.
Because I mean, we're not gonna do it alone, right? We're gonna be part of a team. Um, so I do want to follow up with one question, then we're going to turn over to Barbara to take the questions out of the queue.
Okay.
So when you were talking about in an interview how long a person should respond, uh, how long are you looking for? Like, so if you pose a question, and I know there's different kinds of questions, but technical
Yes.
versus behavioral versus whatever. Um, how long should the pause be before it gets awkward? And then how long should the response be when they're talking? Like, what is your kind of threshold?
Yeah. I have listened. I wait a long time for them after I've said the question for them to respond. I mean, even up to a minute. Usually if it's more than a minute, they'll ask me to repeat the question, which is perfectly fine. And I'm okay with that because it makes me think they're actually listening. They're trying to find the right answer, right? Or the best answer for the question that I have. And I'm okay with delaying and just catch your breath and think about the question and ask me to repeat it. I'm perfectly fine. And I think most interviewers are as well. I wouldn't go into great detail. So I'm thinking let's see, I've got 3 major areas that I need to discuss, and I need to find out answers for 3 major areas or 4 major areas. I've already spent probably 5 or 10 minutes just helping to establish a dialogue with the applicant, making sure that they're comfortable. And then I'm going to go into probably 2 or 3 behavioral questions and 1 or 2 technical questions. So if I've got, let's say 45 minutes because I need to document everything after they leave. And I've got 5 questions and I've already spent 10 minutes relaxed, and that's 35, and I've got 5 questions. So 7 minutes. I have to ask the question. So I would say anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes. 5 is a long time though. So I would say 2 to 3 to 4 minutes is perfectly fine. And the interviewer, a good interviewer, will make sure that everything gets asked and questioned. I also want to be sure at the end. So I would say 2 to 3, because at the end, I want you to ask me questions. So 2 to 3 minutes.
And you can cover a lot of ground in 2 to 3 minutes.
You can. You can.
Yeah. And it depends on the question. So thank you, Marla. I am going to turn the floor over to Barbara with the questions from the chat, because I see there are quite a few. So
Okay.
get ready for that.
Yeah, and we do have quite a few. So Let me start with one of the earlier questions. Marla, I think you talked about, hey, understanding companies and, that. The question is, what makes Honeywell unique compared to other companies? And I think more generally, this is a question about, can you use Honeywell as an example with some maybe compare and contrast, how what Honeywell would see as competitive advantage to a job applicant.
Oh, okay. How, um, that's a great question. So I'll pause here and think, no. So Honeywell, what sets them apart? Um, so I guess the real key, so Honeywell's massive. It's not just aerospace. Like I said earlier, I just touched on a few others, but there's five major segments of Honeywell. And I guess it all comes down to the discipline that you're in and what you really want to do with your career. I know that's kind of nebulous, but um, I'm a chemical engineer, and I know that Honeywell does some amazing things, but I don't know a lot of detail. But I do know that, hey, Honeywell helped to do a ton of stuff at COVID with COVID. You know, you get a box of allergy medication, and they're in this bubble-like thing, and you push out the medication. That was all done by Honeywell. When they tried to figure out ways to get the vaccine out as fast as possible and create glass, because it had to be glass vials to keep it fresh and safe, Honeywell helped do that. They also did masks and things like that. But um, you have to decide where your love is. Is it aerospace? Because if it's aerospace, then Honeywell Aerospace is an amazing company. But if you want to build aircraft, or if you want to deal with propulsion that deals with outer space, Honeywell Aerospace is probably not where you want to be. So I think you've really got to figure out, okay, aerospace, yay, I figured that out. But what do I really want to do? Do I want to look at propulsion? Do I want to look at how we put engines on aircraft, and maybe small engines? Because I'm not GE, I'm not Pratt, I'm not Rolls-Royce, who make big engines, right? So there's so many different aspects of companies and the products they make. But you have to decide, okay, I really loved that fluids class, so I really want to look at thermodynamics and fluids with propulsion. And maybe I don't have to work at a big company, but hey, I'm going to try. I'm going to apply at Honeywell, GE, Pratt, Rolls, maybe even SNECMA, and maybe even other companies outside of the United States. I think ultimately, when you apply at those different companies, you're going to understand their products. You're going to meet and visit the engineers and the people. You're going to see where they're located. And you're going to answer those questions that mean the most to you. Is this the location I want to work at? Is this the job I really want to do? Is it okay if I start small and maybe go to bigger engines? Is it okay if I'm not working on rocket science stuff, but I'm solving air pollution problem with Honeywell Aerospace because our engines don't emit a lot of uh, particles or noise. So you have to think about and again, what value, how do you fit with your values and your morals into what these companies offer and provide. So I hope I kind of answered the question. Barbara, am I on kind of somewhat, or can you direct me to a better answer maybe?
Yeah, let's move on to the next question here. Um, this is from an international student who is studying aerospace and is looking for an internship. The student notes that there were several positions at Honeywell that the student was restricted from because of ITAR restrictions. And the student's question is, given that, what are the students' best opportunities to get experience and learn about this field?
Yeah. Aerospace is hard in the sense that, again, if you're a defense contractor, it's very challenging to hire interns. Well, it's really challenging to hire full-time employees that are not US citizens. The reason that Honeywell chooses not to allow international students to be interns is because they use the intern population to populate their full-time hires. So so there's definitely restrictions. So you have to, unfortunately, be a U.S. citizen or a U.S. person. To get experience in aerospace, I think the thing that I've seen the most is some amazing projects that ASU does with their students in aerospace. There's so many aspects. You can get a degree in aerospace, aeronautics, and astrophysics, I think, or astronautics. So there's a lot of different opportunities to really look at aerospace. There are companies, I can't think of one right this minute, but like Eclipse or Piper or Cessna, a lot of them are smaller aerospace companies that are not as defense related. And I think there's opportunities for you to look across the aerospace industry and find those companies that are not defense heavy and get an internship and then prove yourself and hopefully get a full-time position. Converting to an aerospace to a, if you get a full-time opportunity in Honeywell, we have to sponsor you. That costs a lot of money. And you also have to declare that there's no one in the United States that's a US citizen that could do the job. And so that's hard. It's really tough. I know it's hard for international students to find jobs. It's tougher for United States companies to hire just because the Department of State and Department of Defense really want to be sure that we're doing the right thing. So hopefully I answered your question, Barbara.
Okay, and a question kind of about a specific industry. A student who graduated in May with automotive systems engineer with 4 internships says, leveraged all my connections and making new ones daily. What are better ways to get seen?
Wow. So I'm assuming that you're part of the, the professional organization for cars, automotive. But 4 internships, wow, at Honda, that's really exciting. I'm sad to hear that Honda didn't hire you after 4 internships. Capstone with Honeywell Aerospace. So yeah, how do you do that? I mean, I would come back to just making sure that network and being persistent. I mean, I would definitely make sure that you understand why Honda didn't go after you after 4 internships with them. Also, maybe your mentor at Honeywell Aerospace that did your capstone project, ask him, hey, what's wrong with my resume? or what can I do to improve my resume or to get my foot in the door at Honeywell? I would highly recommend that you just ask them right up front, what's going on. I really felt that I contributed. These are the things that I added to the internship. These are the things that I did on my capstone project. Hey, we got an A on the project. Find out why. I think that's fair. Ask them, do you see hiring coming up and what do I need to do to become one of your hires? Because I know I can add value.
And just touching, kind of adding to that, from your perspective and experience, do employee recommendations make a significant difference?
I don't know about significance, but I have seen them make differences, definitely. A lot of employees, when I was at Honeywell, would send me recommendations or resumes, and I would make sure that I understood the student or the applicant, talk to the person that's recommending them, look to see what I know that's available, and then I would share it with the recruiters or HR. I would say probably 50% of the time, or hopefully a little higher, we hired those people. So I think if you know people, again, it's who you know to help you get those jobs.
Okay, a question about, kind of students who are in school right now and their preparation. What minimum skills should I be focusing on now to have a chance of working on aerospace design projects in industry? CFD, aerodynamics, what do you suggest?
All the above. I think obviously the core classes that you're taking at ASU are outstanding. You're taking everything you need to as an aerospace, mechanical, civil, you know exactly what classes you have to take. I think what I really tell you to do is be able to communicate, be able to walk up to a person you don't even know and tell them, that, hey, I've been working on this project. I'm really excited about working here. Being able to talk to other people and communicate your ideas quickly and succinctly. That type of skill is rare, especially as you get out of college because you haven't had any of those type of classes. I would highly recommend being able to write technically and to be able to speak. I think I would do those first and foremost, and then just follow your curriculum. You'll be great. And then be sure that you do some internships, try to get those internships that are really tied back to aerospace. They really help. And it doesn't have to be, maybe you can't find one in aerospace, but hey, if you get a technical degree, especially between your, I guess, junior and senior year, or may even be between your sophomore and junior, it might not be aerospace, but it's still teaching you that, hey, I have to be at work from 8 to 4:30, or I have these key things that I've done, and these are the results I've had. We love to see that. And then we also know that you've had an opportunity to experience other fields, not just aerospace, and that you've come back to aerospace, and that's really where you want to be.
Marla, you and I have had some conversation about how to find smaller companies that may be kind of in the aerospace or mechanical engineering ecosystem, but don't have big names like Honeywell, like even, Piper, GE Aerospace. What's your recommendation to students about how to find those organizations and present themselves for internships or full-time jobs?
Yeah, yeah. The first place I would go, because when I'm, uh, the first place I would go is definitely the jobs career page at ASU. I think there's definitely very small companies. There's ways that you can filter and look. You could use obviously the web to help you determine aerospace companies in certain locations, certain sizes. That will really help you narrow the field tremendously to get to smaller and small companies. There's also different databases out there. We talked a little bit, Barbara, about the Dun and Bradstreet database that lists all the different types of companies that are out there, location-wise, size-wise, product-wise, revenue. Those are great opportunities to really narrow your search.
Can you describe those more? Students may not be familiar with that, so that might be an opportunity for some of the students that have really talked about, not getting responses to their applications, et cetera. This might be, a different area for them to look into.
Yeah. So there's a database out there, and I think you have to actually apply. You can't just I'm just checking. It's called DNB Hoovers.
I think
And
students can access it as ASU students through the
there
library.
you go. Yeah. And it's DNB Hoovers. It stands for Dun and Bradstreet, Bradstreet, Dun and Bradstreet. And Dun and Bradstreet, DNB, is used in Wall Street. It's used as a key indicator for major businesses throughout the United States. And so it lists every single company that that produces product in the United States. So you can go into it as an ASU student and you can filter on engineering companies or aerospace companies. You could do by location, you could do it by the size of the company. You can see their bottom line, how much money they make, how many products, different types of product they make, all the different locations they're at, who their major customers are. They actually sometimes list, and not recently, but I think it's random, the CEO, the CTO. So you can kind of get an idea of these companies. And that really gives you a really nice picture of, okay, I want to work in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't want to work for a big company. I'm in aerospace. It might give you 10 or 12 different companies that you can start looking at. And maybe even a link to a person that you can send your resume to. Does that help, Barbara?
Sure. A couple more questions here. a student writes in, curious if possessing an active US security clearance would put you a step above other applicants.
So interesting, that's a great question. Um, I we're intrigued, but you still have to file. So Honeywell would still have to file to make sure that you still had the security clearance that you have. So I don't think financially it really helps us. Obviously, it shows that you've passed it through and that you've been cleared for it. So obviously, that's great. Back in the day when it first started, you weren't supposed to put your clearances on resumes because they didn't want people to know who had them. I think that's definitely gone away now, but I think it's great that you have it. I think it gives us confidence in who you are as a United States citizen and a person. But we would still have to go through all the same process that you went through to get it, to renew it and make sure that it was through Honeywell.
So do you recommend that students add that to their resume? And
I would. I think that's fine. Yep. Another thing that distinguishes you.
Some questions about, who is an ideal applicant, and in one case, have you, for entry level positions, have you seen an age range be an issue, like non-traditional students who are, let's say, older than 22, applying for positions?
No, not at all. Um, you know, we have positions to fill, and if the resume, the skill sets, the results that we expect, the grade point average, is all there, then there's an interview opportunity, and then it's up to the applicant to shine for the interviewer and hopefully get a job. Yeah, there's no issues at all. Anyone can apply. There's no restrictions whatsoever. The biggest restriction we do have is the international because of the defense contractor.
Okay. And I've got several questions that kind of touch on how can I really make my resume stand out. So maybe you could, just repeat the advice you had earlier about,
Yeah.
what you as a hiring manager really want to see on a resume. Like if students could, wave a wand and have that attention getting resume, what exactly would that look like?
Okay. So I like a straightforward format, the format that all the students all will get from ASU's Career Center, Fulton's Career Center is perfect because it tells me right up front, your basic summary, who you are in maybe your technical skills, your grade point average, your degrees right up front. And then it goes into work experience, technical as well as work experience. And then it also talks about projects. Those are the things I want to see. I want to see it in black and white. I don't want to see color. I don't want to see icons. I don't want to see links. I want to see it all on one page, all described to me on what makes you you. I want to see results. I want to see you did this project at ASU. So you did this major project to help detect diabetes. I don't know. And where did it go? What was the result of it? Maybe you were able to present it to your professors. 9 out of 10 of your professors gave you an A. I don't know. But think of results. Think of, okay, what did that really do? How did that help me? Okay, maybe I got an A, but that's not the best result. I mean, it is for you, but how else did you contribute to society, right? So results are really important. Try to think, maybe it's not a number, maybe it's not quantifiable, but maybe it's just the fact that you presented it to the Diabetes Association. That's a great result because then it tells me that you took something academic and you gave it to an organization that could potentially use it in the future. So results, really important. I think, yeah, so resume, one page, no foo-foo. Grade point average is really important. Results, results, results. And really try to see what value you've added to your projects and how you've helped the world.
And grade point, very important. So students whose grade point is not very strong, what advice do you have for them?
I would highly recommend that you come prepared with why it's not as high as you think it should be. Now, I don't want excuses. I want to know why factually. So maybe it's because you have to support your family, or maybe it's because you have a job that's 30 hours a week already, or 40 hours a week, and you're trying to get your education at the same time. Maybe you had a bad freshman and sophomore year. Okay, I'm okay with that, but explain to me and show to me, give me evidence that, hey, my grade point average my freshman year was a 2, my sophomore year was a 2.5, and my junior year I moved it up to a 3.0. That's climbing. That's showing progress. That's showing that you've really done something and turned it around. I want to hear that. And then we'll see how it goes from there.
So where do students present that, come prepared? And then how do they bring that information to you, let's say at a career fair?
At a career fair, so when you're waiting in line and you finally have an opportunity to talk to one of the recruiters, maybe it's one of the first after you introduce yourself and say, I'm really looking for a job, but hey, you might notice some of my GPA is a little low. This is why. It's easier in person. If you have a career letter, a cover letter, you really want to be sure that you have a paragraph or a few sentences that really talk about that GPA. That's a little harder because a lot of companies have filters that will filter you out if you have a low GPA. So again, it comes back to your network and where you send that cover letter to be sure that it's seen. And then make sure that you explain that GPA in the cover letter.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for today.
Wow. Okay.